guys, welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show. We are out here at the brand new Warrior Stadium in Alabaster, Alabama. Thompson High School going to play host to a big region matchup this Friday night as the Thompson Warriors are going to play host to the Oak Mountain Eagles. Both teams coming off of difficult losses, but both have plenty of reasons to be positive as well. I'll break that down. It's going to be our game of the week as we finally kick things off in this new state-of-the-art facility. So we'll talk about that one extensively, but we're also going to talk about the first week that was. I want to apologize first off. Some technical issues that we had at the Hoover Met on Friday night with the internet connection. We were unable to bring you your Facebook Live segment that we give you normally every week of the season, and that was just a sign of things to come on Friday night. It was a rough opening week to region play. Teams across the county 3-11 overall last week. That's including the AISA and the ACSC as well. But those two teams in the AHSA that were able to pick up victories, Briarwood and Montevallo, two teams still undefeated on the season. The Bulldogs 3-0 have been really impressive early in the season, and Briarwood 2-0, the number one team in Class 5A for a reason. They're showing it early on, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But there were some big things that we're going to talk about throughout the show, not only as we look ahead to the second week of region play, but we're going to recap everything. And it's a big week to recap because teams getting off to that slow start in region play, that's going to be key this week as we look ahead to the games and get into that second week of region play. You don't want to start 0-2 when it comes to your area simply because that puts you big time behind the 8 ball if you're trying to make a playoff spot. Some teams can endure it. Thompson would be one of those teams. And Oak Mountain would be one of those teams, and one of them is going to go to 0-2. But there's several other teams that if they lose this Friday night, their playoff spot is going to go downhill real quick. There's going to be very little chance of them making the playoffs if they do fall to 0-2 in region play. So we're going to talk about all the games that we have coming up in the second week of region play this Friday night. We're going to break down last week. We'll also talk about our SCR Stars of the Week at the end of the show, as we do every week. Those are going to be the big storylines we're going to break down. But it's going to start our game of the week out here between Thompson and Oak Mountain. Two teams, like I said, coming off of difficult losses, but they're two teams that really shouldn't hang their heads because there was plenty of positive to take away from those two losses, and I think both honestly got better throughout their games as well. So we're going to break that one down first in our game of the week out here at Warrior Stadium. Like I said, both of these teams are coming off of losses, which makes this game not only important for local reasons, but also because both of these teams need to bounce back with a big win on Friday night to improve to 1-1 in region play. And while they both are coming off losses, like I said earlier, there's plenty of positive to take away. I'm going to recap both games real quick for you. And for Thompson, it started early in that game against Hoover. Obviously, they took over the number one spot last week from the Buccaneers. Hoover falls to number 2, and they had that chip on their shoulder. They wanted to come out and prove that they were still the number one team despite that change in the rankings, and they did so early on, showed their physicality, showed their strength, but it really started with a mistake from Thompson. Kyle Smoke trying to field a punt inside the 5-yard line. He fumbles it. Hoover takes over. This was after Thompson had stopped the Bucks on their opening drive. So Hoover takes over on their own, or on the Thompson 1-yard line, punches it in, goes up 7-0. Thompson doesn't score on their first drive. Hoover comes down, scores again, and it was quickly a 21-0 game. Had Thompson gotten that punt fielded and scored first, there's no telling what would have happened, and they still had chances throughout. Despite falling behind 21-0, they trailed. They're late in the second half. They come back in the second quarter and the third quarter, trailed by 5 at one point in the third quarter, and then had a chance with about 7 minutes left to play, down by 2 scores. They were driving inside of the Hoover 30-yard line, and Talia Tungavaloa throws an interception that is returned all the way inside of the Thompson 10-yard line. They go on to punch it in, make it look a lot more lopsided of a game than it actually was. But that was a closely contested game, and what I think the key was is that Thompson grew up throughout that game. Their first 2 contests against James Clemens and Foley didn't really test them as far as the defensive side of the ball. That was one of the biggest keys coming into the season for Thompson, was that defensive side of the ball, losing close to 400 tackles. Their leaders in interceptions. They were losing a lot on that side of the ball. They needed a game like this to test them and see what they could be made of moving forward, and it showed. I mean, besides the second half, it was really that interception and a couple other mistakes that really led to a lot of points in the second half for Hoover. Overall, the defense improved. They were able to handle the test. They kept the team in the game. A lot of that was on Talia Tungavaloa, who was throwing just out of his mind as he usually does. He was able to will the team back, but the defense was getting some key stops, got a key interception. So they improved. They're going to watch film, watch tape throughout the next couple weeks and continue to improve as well. So that's what I was most impressed with. Despite the losses, I think this team grew up throughout and will continue to do so as they learn lessons from this game in the weeks to come. And for Oak Mountain, similarly, they fell behind 28-7 early in their game to Hewitt-Trussville, the number 7 team in the state. But Oak Mountain willed their way back, and it was in large part due to Luke Purser on the offensive side of the ball. 180 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns on the ground as well. Evan Smith, the freshman, 2 more touchdowns for him in that game as well. So the offense really clicking early in the season for Oak Mountain. They actually forced a fumble down 51-47 on their own 1-yard line. End up having a chance there late, but it was just too far for them to march to take that win against Hewitt-Trussville, but showed that they can compete. They were heading into this gauntlet with 3 straight games against Hewitt-Trussville, now Thompson, and then Hoover, the three of the best teams in the state and 3 of the top 50 teams in the country. So that's a tough gauntlet for Oak Mountain, but they showed they could handle that physical test against a tough physical team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to be able to put up points, and that's something that's going to be key in this game. Thompson's defense, like I said, they grew up throughout that game against Hoover, but they also struggled at times and really seemed to struggle at stopping the run, which is something that Oak Mountain keys on. They are a big-time running team. Luke Purser's that main guy this year, obviously coming off that 180-yard, 4-touchdown performance. But Evan Smith, the little quarterback there, who's a freshman, still got some growing to do. But overall, he's a guy that scored 6 touchdowns, 4 in the opener against Chelsea and 2 more against Hewitt-Trussville. He's showing that he can handle the test as a freshman, and that's going to be key in this game. They're going to have to score a lot of points because there's not going to be much stopping the Thompson offense as they continue to grow. The receivers, obviously, still some work to do. They dropped a few passes in that loss to Hoover, but, I mean, they're a talented athletic group with a lot of speed. So it's going to come down to route running and catching balls. And with Talia Tungavaloa and Shadrack Bird both on the offensive side of the ball as well. Talia's coming off a game where he, in a loss, threw for 474 yards and 4 touchdowns. And through 3 games, he already has 1,131 yards and 13 touchdowns on the season. So he's playing out of his mind. This is an Oak Mountain defense that just gave up 51 points to a Hewitt-Trussville offense. It's obviously good, but I think Thompson's is better. So Oak Mountain's going to have to score points in this game. They're going to have to exploit the Thompson running defense, which is going to be angry and out to prove a point after last week's debacle against Hoover on that side of the ball, stopping the run. Because they did a good job of stopping the pass, shutting down George Pickens in that game. So it's going to come down to stopping the run against Oak Mountain. But I think eventually Thompson's going to pull away late in this game. I think they have too much offensive firepower. I think their defense is going to be out to prove a point. But overall, I think this should be a good game moving forward on Friday night. And I also think that both of these teams could very well be playoff teams, and that includes Oak Mountain. Despite if they start 0-2 in region play, we've seen struggles from Spain Park early on. Vestavia and Mountain Brook, I think, are just average teams this year despite strong starts, and I think Oak Mountain will be in those games as well. So one more week for Oak Mountain. They play Hoover next week. If they go 0-3 through that stretch, I would not be surprised still to see them win out on the second leg of the season. We'll see how Friday night goes first, but it should be a fantastic night. The first game out here at the new Warrior Stadium, a beautiful facility. It's going to be an exciting night for all the fans, everybody at this venue on Friday night, and I look forward to being out here as well. 2 weeks ago, Spain Park was my favorite to finish in that fourth-place region spot. They were sitting at 1-0. They were a top 10 team. Even last week, even after that loss to Bessemer City, still a top 10 team with plenty of hopes because their defense was playing so well. But now flash forward to this week. They're coming off a second straight loss to Vestavia Hills, a tough game. They should have won that one or should have at least gotten a chance in overtime. It was tied 21-21. They were on a drive, but a turnover leads to a Vestavia Hills game-winning score. They go on to win that one 28-21. Spain Park now backpedaling, reeling, trying to get any kind of positive momentum they can going into this game with Mountain Brook, a top 10 team that sits at 3-0. So the odds have really shifted in this game. I still think that Spain Park's probably the better team, to be honest with you. Mountain Brook hasn't been tested a ton early in the season, but they have the momentum. Spain Park does not have the momentum. I think that's probably a reason for me to pick Mountain Brook. I probably will go with Mountain Brook when I pick this game, but overall in my head, I still think that Spain Park is the better team, and they're going to have chances in this game. The Spartans coming off 34-0 win against Tuscaloosa County, another win, shutout as well against Centerpoint, 43-0. So the offense, not really the toughest competition they've played, but posting 2 shutouts in a row against a Spain Park offense that's struggling now coming into this game, that's something that tends to tilt the scale in favor of Mountain Brook as well. I do still think that Spain Park has plenty of room to grow on the offensive side of the ball. Jalen Henderson just continues to dominate in the backfield, has 3 straight 100-plus yard rushing games and several touchdowns on the season. I believe he's up to at least 5 now on the season through 3 games. If Mason Pronk can continue to grow, those receivers and him can continue to get on the same page, Spain Park's going to continue to grow, be a better team moving forward. But with difficult games coming up after this, they're going to have Hewitt-Trussville, and I believe they have Thompson as well. They've got a difficult schedule the rest of the way. These first two games for Spain Park against Vestavia and Mountain Brook were going to be the 2 key ones to determining their fate, in my opinion, on making the playoffs. They're one of those teams I was talking about earlier that if they start 0-2 with Hoover, Thompson, and Hewitt still on their schedule, that's going to be tough for them to battle for a playoff spot. Because it's going to be tough to see them winning more than 1 or 2 area games moving forward. They could lose to Oak Mountain and Tuscaloosa County. I would think they would beat Tuscaloosa County, but could lose to Oak Mountain as well. So this is a big game, not just for postseason implications as far as moving down the line, but also for confidence. They've got to get something in the way of confidence back on this team right now. But like I said, they have a ceiling. They have not even come close to reaching it. The defense has played well this season, obviously struggled a little bit last week in that 28-21 loss to Vestavia Hills, but the defense has been pretty solid and consistent all year. The offense just needs to take that next step, rely on somebody other than Henderson to make some big plays as well. Right now I lean towards Mountain Brook, but like I said, I still think Spain Park is the better team in this matchup. Through 2 games of the season, the Pelham Panthers were averaging 43.5 points per game, and then they ran into a buzzsaw last week. The Homewood Patriots holding them to 7 points. That was not what I expected. I expected Pelham to win that game, really honestly going away, and instead they lose it 27-7. Fall to 0-1 in region play, so a difficult start for them. Homewood, on the other hand, showed a lot of power. I thought the winner of that game was going to go on to win the region championship this year, despite it being the first game of the season as far as region play goes, and I still think that's the case. Jackson Olin's going to put in a tough effort as well, but I would not be surprised if Homewood goes on, really finishes undefeated in region play and wins this region now. But Pelham still very easily, I think, is one of the top 3 teams in this region, is going to get a playoff spot. Obviously, they want to win it or they want to finish second. They still control their own destiny as far as finishing second in the region, and that's probably going to come down to a matchup with Jackson Olin, but they're going to have to get that confidence back. This is a team that, like me, was riding a lot of confidence in themselves. I thought that the Panthers were going to go in, win this game big. They did too, and instead they come out on a 27-7 loss. They're going to have to pick that confidence back up, not let it phase them at all, because they do have to realize that that probably is the best team that they're going to face the rest of the way. They still have a very talented offense despite being held to 7 points. That's one of the best defenses they'll face all year, even as they get into the playoffs as well. So nothing to really hang their heads on. They just need to go back, watch the film, get back to the drawing boards as they move forward into this matchup Friday night against Minor, and it's the perfect rebound game for them to get that confidence back. This is a Minor team that is struggling big time early in the season. They're 0-3 so far on the year, so I expect Pelham to really bounce back in this game in a big way. The Minor losses have been 30-15 to Jackson Olin, and that was last week. And the other 2 losses that Minor had, they didn't score more than 10 points in. So it's going to be tough to see this Minor team really scoring a lot of points in this game. Pelham's defense, even in that 27-7 loss, it wasn't a bad defensive effort that they gave, and it's really been a good defense since that first quarter against Calera to start the season. So this Minor team 0-3, struggling to score points. They're giving up a lot of points. Pelham's going to put up a lot of points and hold this Minor team. I wouldn't be surprised if they held them scoreless in this game. but I do see Minor scoring a couple of times. But overall, this Pelham team, this is the perfect situation for them coming off of that game against Homewood. I think they bounce back in a big way, make a statement that they're not done yet, and that they're going to still battle to try to win the region championship at the end of the season. The biggest positive for the Helena Huskies going into this big matchup with a top 10 ranked Homewood team is going to be the bye week that they're coming off of. They've had an extra team. They were able to watch that game against Pelham last week. They've had an extra week to watch tape on this Homewood team and prepare for this game. But that being said, it is going to be a tough go, I think, against this Patriots defense that's just been solid all year. Like I said, that Pelham team was scoring 43.5 points per game through their first two. Homewood came in and shut them down, only allowed 7 points in that game. They've also gone through two games before that, gave up 17 and a 17-10 loss to Vestavia. The week before that, they only gave up 7 points in their opener of the season as well. So this is a Homewood defense that is really solid early in the season. That's carried them so far. It's going to do so again in this game. Helena, through two games before their bye week, had scored 7 and 13 points. So to have scored a combined 20 points through 2 weeks against this defense that's not giving up any points, that's going to make it for a tough game for the Helena Huskies. I do think that the bye week they're coming off of is going to make this a closer game than some people may expect. And I also think that Homewood's offense is still trying to find itself. Helena's obviously struggling on both sides of the ball early. It's going to take some growing from them for them. They know it. Head coach Richie Busby knows it. There's a lot that they need to do moving forward, but they continue to grow each week. I've seen it throughout the season so far, and it's going to take a while, and this is going to be a difficult contest for them. But like I said, coming off that bye, they'll have some things that can help them out in this game. But in the end, Homewood's defense is just going to be too much. I think that leads them to a victory in this one. The Chelsea Hornets coming off a difficult 24-28 loss to the Carver Birmingham Rams. It was a game that they really had a chance to win, should have won down the stretch there. They were up 24-13 late in that game in the fourth quarter. Carver scores 15 unanswered, pulls off the come-from-behind victory, and Chelsea goes to 0-1 in region play. That game took place last Thursday night, so now it's an 0-3 start to the 2018 football season for the Chelsea Hornets, and they're going to need some positivity moving forward. One thing they can use as some momentum, their offense continues to improve each and every week. Turner Griffin seems to be getting more and more comfortable at the quarterback position. I was impressed with him against Briarwood, especially when they started that game back on that Saturday, and he continued that play last week against Carver. So he's going to have to continue doing so moving forward. That being said, this week it's going to be tough to build that momentum, tough to get that offense going because they're taking on a very good 3-0 Jackson Olin team that has scored 30 points in its last two games, coming off a 30-15 victory against Minor last week. And it's a team that hasn't given up more than 15 points so far in a game this season. That does not spell success for Chelsea, who has struggled on offense dating back to last year. And while they're gaining confidence and getting better, and I think Turner Griffin's going to continue to progress, they are going to become an offense that's difficult to stop, I think, moving forward, especially with a couple of good running backs in the backfield. But overall, this Jackson Olin team is just so complete on both sides of the ball. And for Chelsea to still not be 100% there offensively with the way that Jackson Olin's defense is playing so far this season, not having given up more than 15 points in a game, it's just going to be tough for Chelsea to really score enough points to win this game. Jackson Olin, they're good enough on the offensive side of the ball as well that I think they're going to pull away eventually in this game. But I do think Chelsea can keep it close for a while. They're that physical, tough kind of team. They've got a good defense. And while the defense has not really progressed throughout the season, it's kind of regressed, I do think this is a team that's going to be physical enough to stay in this game for a while. And who knows, they may be in it late in the fourth quarter again. Jackson Olin's a very inconsistent team as far as history goes, so it could be a closer game than people expect. It could be that Turner Griffin has a chance at the quarterback position to make some plays, but only time will tell. Right now, you have to lean in the favor of Jackson Olin because of the way their defense is playing. The Calera Eagles now 0-3 on the season. It's a team that a lot of people had high expectations for coming into the year simply because of all the individual talent they had on both sides of the ball, and now they're off to that 0-3 start. They lose this past week. No fault to them. They took on the number one team in the state, one of the best teams in any classification, fell 34-14 to Wetumpka on the road. You can't really expect too much in that game. Wetumpka is going to probably be a strong contender when it comes to the postseason and a state championship in the 6A classification. It's the Eagles' first year in the 6A classification. A lot of people forget that. I know it's a team that's had some issues as far as coming together and doing some stuff, but this is jumping up a classification, especially from the 5A classification to the 6A classification, is probably the most difficult jump you can make. We saw it from Briarwood a few years back, a team that could go on and win a state championship, but then went up to 6A, really struggled. So, this really doesn't come unexpected. I know the team, I know the coach, I know the fans. A lot of people had higher expectations going into the season, but it was a tough start to the year for the Eagles. They start with that home game, had a chance against Pelham, just kind of faltered because of depth issues, because they have made that jump. And then the last 2 weeks they've been on the road. They'll be on the road for a third consecutive week this Friday night when they take on Stanhope Elmore. So you just hope to continue seeing progression. And I know Cornelius Brown was only there for part of the first quarter last week. And so we'll see what happens moving forward, injury-wise, depth-wise, for this team. But it's going to take a lot of coming together for this team to be successful at this level. But so many guys are playing on two sides of the ball, which is just tough to do at the 6A level. This week, earlier in the season, I would have thought that Calera could come out victorious in this game against Stanhope Elmore. It's a pretty good team. They're sitting at 2-1 right now. But earlier in the season, you would have expected Calera to probably win this game. But Calera now sitting at 0-3, Stanhope at 2-1. The real difference is the defensive side of the ball. Stanhope Elmore coming off a 19-0 shutout of Benjamin Russell, and that's going to be key. Calera is just struggling on the offensive side of the ball right now, and are coming off that game against Wetumpka where they scored just 14 points. And struggled the week before that and really haven't played well since that first quarter against Pelham on the offensive side of the ball. So it's going to take some work for them in this game. And when you're going up against this solid of a defense in Stanhope Elmore that has yet to give up more than 19 points in a game and is coming off a shutout, they're playing with a lot of confidence. I don't know that their offense is going to run away in this one. I think Calera will have a chance. I wouldn't be surprised by the upset. I mean, they're going to win a game eventually. I really do feel that way about this Calera team. But right now you just have to lean towards Stanhope Elmore simply because of the defensive versus offensive difference in this game. And I think that's going to be the big-time factor in a victory for Stanhope Elmore. It's been another dominant start to the season for the Briarwood Christian Lions, who have now won 21 consecutive regular season games. They just continue to be dominant, especially on the defensive side of the ball. The offense is struggling early in the season. They scored 19 against Chelsea on the offensive side of the ball. Only scored 10 last week, but they pick up a 10-6 win against Pleasant Grove. That's the key, though. The 6 points they gave up, they gave them up in both games. Just 6 points. It's a team last year that only gave up 10 points per game. They've transitioned nicely into this season. Despite a few key losses, I thought that this defense had the chance to be better than last year's team. And they've been on the field a lot because the offense hasn't been scoring a lot of touchdowns. What's helped, though, is the run game on the offensive side of the ball. That leads to longer drives and sustained drives, and that's really all they've been able to do on the offensive side of the ball. J.R. Trenrino's taking over at quarterback this year, and he's been strong running the football. He has not yet gotten comfortable in the pocket as far as passing the ball goes. That's something he's going to have to hope continues to transition moving forward, something the coaching staff wants to improve on as well, knowing that if they're able to pick up that passing game, this is going to be a dangerous and scary team to stop moving down the line. But overall, the run offense has been incredible. Last week, J.R. Trenrino, 160 yards on the ground, and that touchdown that really sealed the game late there in the second half. That was the only touchdown by the Lions. It's the only one they needed. They win that one 10-6, large part because of that run game, but as well as their defense. And this week, they're going to move to 3-0. They're going to be 2-0 in region play at the end of Friday night. They're taking on a Woodlawn team on the road however, but they're taking on a Woodlawn team that is struggling right now. They're coming off 2 straight losses, both of them shutouts. They failed to score points in either of those games the last 2 weeks. It's a 34-0 loss to Winona last week. The week before that, it was a 49-0 loss to American Christian. Both of those teams extremely talented, but so is Briarwood. Briarwood's defense may be better than both of those. So I don't expect Woodlawn to score. Briarwood's offense still needs some work, but they could win this one 3-0. That's how confident I feel in Briarwood's defense not giving up any points. I do think that the offense is obviously going to score more than 3 points this week. They're going to continue to get better. If Luke Pruitt's back in the backfield, that's a two-headed monster between Tranreno and Pruitt that can easily both go over 100 yards on the ground. So with the defense playing the way it is, the offense still growing and getting better, this is going to be a long night for Woodlawn. I think that Briarwood should win this one running away and should pull off the shutout as well. We have one more 5A game to talk about this Friday night. It's going to be Shelby County at Bibb County, a big game for the Wildcats as far as continuing their season with momentum at all. This is a team that's struggling right now, coming off a 34-0 loss to a very, very average Chilton County team. The offense couldn't get going. The defense is regressing as well. It's a defense that early in the season was playing well in their first 2 games, but has really backed off the last 2 weeks, and it's because the offense can't get in the end zone and the defense is on the field the entire game. Through 3 games, they have to be exhausted because that offense is not really doing much in the way of moving the ball. We'll see what happens moving forward. Sitting at 0-3 right now, coming off of that loss to Chilton County. It's obviously not been the start that the Wildcats wanted. The good thing for them, the saving grace, is while Chilton County was an average team and is probably on the level that the rest of the team Shelby County will play this year, it's a very average region that they compete in. And while they sit at 0-1, there's plenty of chances ahead for them moving forward in region play down throughout the rest of the season. And it starts this week with Bibb County. This is a Bibb County team that is very average so far and has lost their last 2 games, 42-12 to Pelham 2 weeks ago, and then last week 39-7 to Demopolis. Those are 2 very good football teams, albeit, but at the same time, it's being 1-2 right now, you're obviously struggling, and they're coming off 2 games where they hadn't scored a lot of points. And that's something that Shelby County can look at as a positive, not only in this game, but moving forward, that it only takes 1 game for them to turn their season around. It can start this Friday night if they put together a complete performance. If the offense finally gets going, they're going to have a chance to win this football game against another very average team in Bibb County. I do think they're going to have their chances, but they're going to have to do it early in the football game. They need to score a touchdown to get that weight off of their shoulder, put some points on the board, and that'll give the defense some added confidence that you can actually score and will help them come out and play a little bit more physical and tougher as well. So we'll see how it goes. They'll have their chances, but it's got to be done early. If they fall behind early again, I just don't see this offense scoring enough to be able to bring them back. But it's an average Bibb County team, like I said, and they're going to have their chances to win a football game. Montevallo's first 2 games of the 2018 season against 2 5A opponents, they win both of them. And then they come back last week. They're taking on a 4A, now region opponent, but it was a team that was in 5A last year. So that's 3 straight teams that they start the season with that were 2 classifications higher a season ago. Montevallo dominates this past week. They take down Dallas County 41-0 in a shutout. The offense has been incredible so far this season behind quarterback Malik Bennett. He's formed a strong connection with wide receiver J.J. Evans as well, and there's plenty of other talent on the offensive side of the ball for Montevallo, but seeing the defense pitch a shutout last week, also very impressive. So this Montevallo team is clicking on all cylinders right now off to that 3-0 start. Very important, too. This is a team that was, don't forget, a 3A team a season ago. They've played 3 teams in a row to start the year that were 2 classifications higher, and 2 of those are still in the 5A classification. So to start that way has obviously been very impressive. And this week they're going to take on another one, a 4th team that was in 5A last year and still resides in 5A this year. That's going to be Jemison this Friday night, and a big game, not just for this Friday to win, but moving forward, because the following week they take on their most difficult opponent of the year. They'll be taking on American Christian Academy, a team that really handed it to Montevallo last year. But like I said, I expect you don't want to lose any momentum going into that game, but I expect Montevallo to roll again. Despite being a 3A team last year, they've shown that they can handle these 5A teams early in the season. This is a Jemison team that's 0-3, coming off a 36-21 loss to Central Tuscaloosa. So Jemison, they've played average teams. They've lost all of them, giving up. I think they're giving up close to 40 points a game so far, at least 30-something points per game so far. Jemison is giving up on the season. They're scoring some. They've been around the 20 points per game mark so far this season, but Montevallo is going to score points in this game. Their defense is continuing to improve, really dating back to the second half against Shelby County 2 weeks ago. So I really like Montevallo to win this one again, start 4-0 against 4 teams that were in the 5A classification last year, 3 of them still in that classification. I know I've repeated that a lot, but that's a huge confidence boost for this team moving forward, obviously into that big matchup a week from Friday against American Christian. But either way, this has been a strong start for Montevallo to the 2018 season. I expect them to get to 4-0 with a big win again this week. So our struggles didn't stop in the AHSA last week. They also continued down into the AISA and ACSC simply because of tough opponents. All of our teams were taking on some of the best teams across the state, and it starts with Coosa Valley, a loss to Autauga Academy, one of the better teams there. This week they'll have a chance to bounce back against Lakeside. That'll be another difficult game, but they should have their chances to win that game as well. For Cornerstone, it was a difficult loss to Chambers Academy. And Chambers is obviously one of the best teams in the state and a favorite to win a state championship as well. They sit inside the top 5 of the standings as well. Kingwood, it was just their toughest game of the year. They took on the number 1 team in the AISA, Tuscaloosa Academy. It was a strong 3-0 start for the Lions for the first time since 2006, but that was obviously a tough game for them to go into and pick up a win. So difficult game. They fall in that one. This week they'll have their chance to bounce back against Lee Scott. They should have a chance to win that one, move to 4-1 on the season. The only win last week among our AISA and ACSC level schools was the Evangel Lightning, obviously one of the best 8-man teams in the state, winning the ACSC championship for the last several years in a row. They pick up a big 8-man win last week as well against Freedom Academy. So they're our only team. Hope had the week off. They were our only team to win last week among those 5 schools. This week, a big matchup for Evangel. They take on Ezekiel Academy, a team they won a close game against last year in the regular season before going on to dominate in the state championship game to win the ACSC title. So that should be one of the more interesting games to watch among those teams this week, but all looking to bounce back. Right now, Evangel's the only one above 500 at 3-2, so all these teams need some momentum moving forward. As we do every week, we're going to close the show down with our SCR Stars of the Week, all the top performances that we saw in Week 1 of region play. And while it wasn't the strongest start across the county for our teams, there were some impressive performances despite the losses. We're going to start in 7A with the Oak Mountain Eagles. Obviously, Luke Purser, the whole team really deserves kudos and deserves an SCR star for the way they performed against Hewitt-Trussville. Fell behind 28-7, come back, lose that one 51-47. Had a chance to win it late against the number 7 team in the country and one of the best offensive playmakers in the country in quarterback Paul Tyson. So a strong performance from Oak Mountain. It started with Luke Purser. They're running the football 180 yards and 4 touchdowns, in that game against Hewitt-Trussville. A strong performance for him. Freshman Evan Smith continued his great transition into a starting role on the varsity football team as a freshman. He had 2 more touchdowns in this game, now has 6 total on the season, and has powered an offense that has scored more than 40 points in their first 2 games. We'll see how they handle playing back-to-back games now, as they had a bye week before that Hewitt-Trussville game. So now they go into this matchup out here, our game of the week at Thompson. So we'll see how they handle that back-to-back game atmosphere. But overall, this is a team that's playing really well so far early in the season. Our next SCR Stars are going to come from the other team in our game of the week, the one that will be hosting the game this Friday night, the Thompson Warriors. Talia Tungavaloa, he just continues to impress. I mean, obviously one of the best players in the country right now, but 474 passing yards and 4 touchdowns against Hoover. He did throw that late interception that ended up being the difference in the game, but overall that was an impressive performance for him. He did everything he could to will that team back, especially starting late in the second quarter where he completed 8 passes in a row to end the first half. So a strong performance for him. He now has 1,131 yards, 13 touchdowns so far on the season for Thompson. So obviously playing lights out. That's unbelievable, the kind of numbers that he's been able to put up early in the year. And he's clicking with receivers. They had some big drops. That's something I wanted to talk about. They had some key drops in that loss to Hoover. One drive, they dropped 3 or 4 or 5 in a row. And it would have been a drive that they were inside the red zone, had a chance to score, settled for a field goal, and missed the field goal. So that was a difference in that game as well. So obviously the receivers need to start catching the ball a little bit more, but overall their talent, athleticism, and speed is tremendous right now. And you had J.B. Mitchell with 152 yards receiving, a sophomore there for Thompson. Michael Petway continues to impress. He's had 3 games where he's been right around 100 yards. He had 115 this past week with 2 touchdown catches. Kyle Smoke had 89 receiving yards, touchdown as well. And then A.J. Bonham on one drive alone had all 67 of his yards on 2 catches, including a touchdown on that drive as well. So the receivers, if they start catching every ball thrown their way, they're going to be an extremely talented group, and this offense may be unstoppable moving forward. Our last 7A player I wanted to talk about, Jalen Henderson, obviously off to an impressive start this year. 151 rushing yards this past week, and now on the season a total of 431 yards through 3 games so far, 172, 108, and now 151 in those first 3 games, and also scored again this past Friday night after having 4 through the first 2 weeks. So Jalen Henderson's playing outstanding. They need some other playmakers on that offense to step up, but overall been very impressed by the way Henderson has played through the first 3 games of the year. Another game, it came as a loss for Pelham, but on the defensive side of the ball, while they did give up 27 points, they were on the field a lot with the offense struggling in that game. Ryan Jewell had 17 tackles. That is an impressive number for total tackles there at the linebacker position. So he was doing his job in that game. Obviously one of the best players in the county and in the state at the linebacker position. I expect them to bounce back with a big win this week, in large part because of that defense against Minor, who's going to struggle to score against the Pelham Panthers. The last, another SCR star that I want to talk about, the Briarwood defense overall, as well as J.R. Trainrino. Briarwood's defense playing dominant through the first 2 games. We talked about it earlier. 6 points to Chelsea, 6 points to Pleasant Grove, a combined 12 through those first 2 games. They are doing everything they can to keep them in the games this year. And with an offense struggling, they've been on the field a lot as well. So a strong start to the season for the defense. Trainrino, another strong performance this past week, had 121 rushing yards from the quarterback position, really took that on his shoulders, scored the team's only touchdown. He had to have a lot of rushing yards with Luke Pruitt sidelined with an injury in the game. So that was an important aspect to the game there for Briarwood to pick up that win. And so we'll see how it goes moving forward. He's going to have to start passing the ball, but he's been playing outstanding from the quarterback position as far as running goes. That two-headed monster with the running game and the defense has just been a tough thing to stop so far this year for opponents. So now I want to move down, talk about our 2 Montevallo players that I've mentioned several weeks in a row on the SCR Stars of the Week segment, Malik Innabanet and J.J. Evans. Malik Innabanet's just playing outstanding so far this year. He had another 200-plus yard passing game, 241 yards and 4 touchdowns against Dallas County in that 41-0 win. He has 705 yards and 9 touchdowns through 3 games so far this year. He's been head and heels above everybody else aside from Talia Tungavaloa at the quarterback position. I've been extremely impressed with the junior there at Montevallo and the connection he's made with J.J. Evans, who had 105 receiving yards in that win as well. 100-plus yards in 2 of the 3 games now, with 93 being the other game. So right around 100 yards in every game receiving so far for J.J. Evans. Also, the Montevallo defense picking up the shutout against Dallas County was obviously a big deal for momentum moving forward as well. I think that's going to be key. If this offense and defense are both playing well, they're going to be one of the best teams in the state, I think, and definitely one of the best in the county moving forward. The last guy I want to talk about, we didn't mention him a few minutes ago, but Tyler Henderson at Evangel, 7 touchdowns combined, I believe 4 passing, 3 rushing in Evangel's win against Freedom Academy. So obviously a strong performance for him, strong performance for Evangel overall as they got back above 500 to get to 3-2 on the season. Overall, a strong week from a lot of individual players. Obviously, teams need to improve overall together with the 3-11 showing that the county had this past Friday night. But moving forward, I expect that to happen. I still think several of our teams are really good football teams and will improve moving forward on both sides of the ball. So we'll see how things go in the second week of region play. Like I said, it's a huge week for several teams that do not need to start 0-2. I've said that Oak Mountain and Thompson can both get away with it because of the way their schedule's set up. But both of those obviously need wins too. So it's just an important week all around. You don't want to fall to 0-2 through your first 2 games of region play. That's obviously not a momentous start that you need moving forward into the rest of the season. We're going to have our great coverage. Again, I'm going to try to get our Facebook Live going again this Friday night from here at Warrior Stadium as they play host to the Oak Mountain Eagles, the first ever home game played inside this stadium. The anticipation will be there. Obviously, some excitement for the team. After coming off a loss, there's a lot to look forward to this week playing the first game here. They hope to christen it with a big win. So we'll be out here. That's going to be our game of the week, obviously. We'll try the Facebook Live segment, and hopefully it goes well this week with better internet and phone service out here at Thompson High School. But overall, should be an exciting week 2 of high school football, or week 2 of region play in Shelby County. We'll see how everything goes, but I expect a big week from all of our teams across the county moving into the rest of region play starting this Friday night. So that's going to do it from Thompson High School right now in the brand new Warrior Stadium, where we'll see you on Friday night.